Before I preview Tennessee versus Texas, which is going to happen in a couple hours, 2 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPNU, I would like to personally thank Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson, the pitching coach who has been there for almost 20 years, and the entire baseball team for everything they've done for the university. Of course, the football team has another coach. Again, give him a chance, see what he does. But they're also under probation. The basketball team got their ass totally kicked, despite all the talent they possessed in the first round of the tournament. This baseball team has been a great distraction and has rejuvenated the Tennessee fan base. I'm not going to lie to you and say I've been a diehard baseball fan like I have been basketball and football. I started watching baseball in 2019 is when I started following it closely. Tennessee won 40 games that year. They lost in the Chapel Hill Regional. They lost to Liberty, and then they lost to North Carolina. That's when I began to watch Tennessee baseball. It was in 2019, about halfway through the season. I started following it. Then, of course, in 2020, Tennessee goes 15-0, best start ever in the history of the university. Then they lose to Wright State, who is a very underrated team. Then the season gets shut down due to COVID. I really felt like with all of the players they had a great chance to really make a run in the tournament. If you've been following this team even a little bit, you could see that this team was going to have a good year. I knew they would. I just didn't expect it to be this good. 50 wins. My prediction before the season is that this team was going to be in the Super Regional. I didn't know they were going to host one. I thought this team would be in the top 10 and then maybe lose in the Super Regional. So this team already has exceeded my expectations. All of the moments that we've had this season have been fantastic. Whether it's Tennessee coming back against Alabama and totally destroying them after getting gypped on the call where Max Ferguson slid and they claim that he interfered. Therefore, Tennessee ended up losing to Alabama. Whether it was the Drew Gilbert walk-off, bottom of the ninth home run, all of these classic moments have really been a blessing to Vol Nation. I just wanted to thank Tony Vitello and this team. Now that I got all of the formalities out of the way, it's time to get into today's game. One of the things interesting is that Lindsey Nelson, where Tennessee plays, is a small ballpark. It is 320 feet. TD Ameritrade, which is the stadium where the College World Series is played, is 374 feet. The foul line is a lot larger in diameter. Not only is it longer horizontally, but it's also longer in width and diameter. That's why a lot of the hits that would be a base hit in Lindsey Nelson are fouls. Tennessee, unlike Texas, got a couple hits. Texas ended up striking out 21 times. In a baseball game, you have to get 28 outs. So that means Texas struck out over 90% of that game. That's because, like Abbott, the pitcher from Mississippi State, and his name escapes me right now. He's a great, great, great pitcher, though. He's a hell of a pitcher. He threw the ball really low, close to that strike zone. Texas struggled to adjust to the ball. Eventually, in the ninth inning, it looked like the guy struck out. I didn't really care who won. I was non-partial. I could care less. But as an unbiased observer, it looked like the guy struck out. The umpire called it a ball. And then on the very next play, the guy whacks it over the fence. Texas ends up scoring a run. Of course, they don't win. They lose 2-1. The difference is Texas struck out the majority of the time. Tennessee squandered opportunity after opportunity. In the first inning, of course, you get your leadoff man, Lim Spence, onto base. You have 2 men on in scoring position and 0 outs. You don't get anything out of that. If Tennessee would have just got 1 run, it would have completely changed the momentum of the game. Of course, in the third inning, similar story. You have 2 men on, 0 outs. Pavelloni hits the ball on a bunt to advance the runner. In that situation, to be fair, I'm not really a fan of that. I get it. You have 2 men on, 0 outs. But a base hit, which would get Pavelloni onto base, would be a lot better in that situation rather than a bunt. But of course, that's Monday morning quarterback. At the time, I was thinking, why is he bunting? But when he got the bunt down, I thought, well, at least he advanced the runner. I can kind of see the thinking behind it, but of course, I'm not really a fan of the bunt in most circumstances, especially when Pavelloni has shown he can whack the ball out of the park. So the biggest difference is that Texas struck out. Tennessee was able to get a couple hits, but nobody really showed up other than Pete Durkee. Pete Durkee, the designated hitter, interesting enough, has actually been the leading hitter percentage-wise since Hoover, Alabama. His average has really jumped up. He got 2 base hits. He's also one of the top players on the team in walks, since he's very patient. In one of the innings, I forget when it was because I kind of checked out. I mean, I still had the game on, but when Virginia had that inning where they were able to score, I think it was 4 runs, I kind of just checked out a little bit, but I still kept the game on, kind of as background noise. I think it was Drew Gilbert, he hit the ball, which in Lindsey Nelson would have been a home run. But of course, it slid foul. Of course, Tennessee still would have lost 6-1. But the point I'm making is Lindsey Nelson's a lot smaller than TD Ameritrade. Hopefully, Tennessee is able to adjust and able to hit a couple home runs. What matters really is the weather in Omaha. If the wind is really active, is really potent, it can carry the ball over the fence. I looked at the forecast and it's going to be in the 60s with a chance of precipitation, 5 to 10 mile per hour wind. So I don't really see a lot of home runs today due to the weather. The weather plays a big factor when it comes to home runs. Texas has 3 batters at the top of their lineup who hit 300 or better. Just like Tennessee, Texas is a really hot scoring team, but unlike Tennessee, they don't hit a lot of home runs. If you look at their batters, their top 3 batters, they have a couple that are really good. They hit in the 300s, and their top home run man has like 10 or 11. While in Tennessee, it's either Gilbert or Beck. They have 15. You have a couple players that have 13, 14, and 15 on Tennessee. But Texas more then Tennessee gets base hits. Tennessee is more of a home run scoring team. Today on the mound, you're going to have Blade Tidwell. He's a freshman. He's done really well. Just like the Mississippi State pitcher, Blade Tidwell is able to throw the ball right low in that strike zone. If Blade Tidwell is able to throw the ball like that, it's really going to mess Texas up. It took them almost an entire baseball game to adjust. Chad Dallas actually didn't do too bad. Virginia had a great game plan. You had to give them credit. They had a really, really good game plan. And even though I didn't root for them, you got to really be happy about Michaels and his dad. His dad didn't get to see baseball the entire season because he had cancer. Michaels thought he might not play because of his dad. His cancer so far has went away, and he was able to hit 2 home runs. His only 2 home runs of the season. I mean, I was mad as a Tennessee fan, but you got to love that story. That's a great story for baseball, and I wish his dad the best in the future. I just hope Virginia gets their ass kicked, but I hope his dad, in all honesty, is healthy and everything goes good for them. Not only did they have the emotion of his dad, but they also were hot that game. Virginia is a timely hitting team. They're not going to wow you, but they get hits when it matters most, and they just attacked Tennessee. They played their best game of the season. I went back and watched some of their games, some of the highlights, and that was by far their best performance of the season. Tennessee had opportunities. Jake Rucker got struck out. And it looked like they didn't want to swing at some of the pitches either. They looked hesitant. For the first time all year, they looked hesitant. Blade Tidwell is a really good pitcher, though. If he can throw it low in that strike zone, and Tennessee can get some hits, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. The further along in the season you get, the more adjusted the teams are. Plus, it's a big ballpark. It's not really windy. I see it being a low-scoring game. I see it being 5 or less. I'm not going to make a prediction, but I do think if Tennessee is able to hit the ball a little bit, that they have the advantage due to the pitching. Go Vols, and I will have, win or lose, mark my words, I will have a post-game reaction, whether it is good, bad, or ugly. Go Vols. Tennessee's the real UT. Let me just say this real quick and I'll be out of here. Tennessee's college was founded even before Texas was a state. David Crockett died at the Alamo from Tennessee. James K. Polk, the president who annexed Texas, was from Tennessee. Sam Houston, who was the first governor of Texas and who the city is named after, the largest city in Texas, Houston, actually was a state representative from Tennessee, and he got his law license in Nashville, Tennessee. Texas has ugly-ass orange. It looks like a burnt turd. Go Vols. Beat the Longhorns.